ready to roll.
I love it. All right. Happy Friday, everyone. It is great to be here. My name is Fritz Pollard. I am a MAPS head coach, executive coach, and I am also the director of consumer experience for MAPS, working out of Austin. And it's really, truly a pleasure to be here with you today, talking to the Forward Living Group and all of those great human beings that are logging in via Facebook and partaking. What we are going to cover today is not covered very often in a real estate context, and it's a tragedy. And I'm just going to be upfront about that. So much of real estate training is based on how to go get a listing, how to represent a buyer, how to keep a deal together. And all of that is critically important. But I think one thing we forget about is the why we get up and go to work every day, the why we spend all those early mornings and those late nights getting better at our craft, script practice and role play, dealing with buyers that want to look at properties on holidays, and we burn that midnight oil. Why do we do it? And the skills and strategies are really, really important. And yet, if we don't know the why behind getting out of bed every day to make it happen, we may at times throughout the year start to lose touch with what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I mentioned in the opening, the little promo video that was sent out, the great business author Simon Sinek wrote a book, Starting with Why. And you hear a lot about in the coaching circles, what's your why? And, someone once told me, you can have hundreds of little whys to get your life and business and processes going. I can tell you I fly out of bed every single day because of a bunch of little whys. But the reality is, I know one day there is a retirement picture I have for myself that is crystal clear and becoming clearer. Part of that journey, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the work that I've done with the very tool that we are going to cover today called the Net Worth Tracker. Now, before we get too deep into this, you all should have access through the email that was sent, a file. And for those of you who were with me in December, we were working in that file. We just didn't go all the way over to the right and get into the Net Worth Tracker piece. We were working on the 12-week year, the GPS, and the current self and the future self breakdowns. By the way, this file, this little download that some of you may be working from, be ready. I'm going to be spending most of this year in that file doing work around it. We can be updating our 12-week year, looking at the 7 circles. It's really a very powerful file that I've shared with you. So get ready as we get into February, March, and April. There may be more trainings spent in this file. And yet all the way to the right is the Net Worth Tracker tabs. So if you've got that file from December, great. Deb, I think you have some update for us.
Just wanted to let you know the tracker, the file is in our chat box. So if in fact they did not receive it earlier or previously, it is there right now for you to click on it and open it.
It's so great to have nice assistance here today. And I appreciate Taryn here at the office and Deb from some remote location, which is exciting on a beach. And it all helps me get this thing presented to you. So again, we're going to focus on the Net Worth Tracker piece. And before we get into the details, because actually the tracker itself is a very short segment of this training, the why behind what we do every day is really what I want you to get as a foundation before we get into the tracker. And so whether it's the books that you're reading or the study and the processes you're going through around money, it is definitely something that justifies why we do get up and work so hard. So late last year, one of the coaches that I get the privilege of working with said, Fritz, I just read this great book about money. And I am an avid reader. I follow Gary Keller's book list, and anything that he's reading or anyone else that I respect that they're reading, I make a note of it. And so when this coach shared with me this book on money, I wrote it down. And the next time I had an opportunity to download a book, I did. And that book is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. That's Housel. Coincidentally enough, and by the way, there are no coincidences. This was meant to be, this was a journey that I was on. So the coach tells me about the book. I download it. I'm literally halfway through the book, and I'm participating in a Gary mastermind. And lo and behold, Mr. Housel, the author, is the featured speaker for the mastermind. So before you know it, I'm getting all of this great information coming at me. And I've written out a few of the quotes and the slogans and the theories from that book that's going to set us up before we get to the net worth tracker. And I want you to write these things down. This is a short book. It is simply presented, and it is a very basic approach to our relationship with money. The book opens up with, it's not about how smart you are. It is about how you behave in your relationship to money. It is not how smart you are. It is about how you behave in your relationship around money. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care what kind of degrees you have, how high you score in an IQ test, your behavior around money is the difference. And that will begin to change today as we look at the net worth tracker. Next point. Money is an issue of greed versus patience. Greed versus patience. They tell a great story in the book about the janitor who went to work every day, worked hard, loved his family, and just kept putting a little away, a little away, a little away. And on his passing, made a sizable 7-figure donation to a wonderful cause of his liking. And yet there are millions of people who have high dollar incomes and don't have a great relationship with money, and they're flying high one day and they're broke as broke could be tomorrow. So again, these stories and the dichotomy of success around money, these stories are worth us reviewing, and then we can put ourselves into that story and say, is that a story about me? Continuing on, happiness equals control of one's life, and money gives you control. Happiness equals control of one's life, and money gives you control. Here's what's interesting. We leap too quickly to, happiness immediately to money. It's control that creates happiness. Control to retire when you want to. Control to spend time with the people that you want to spend time with. I told you in that file we downloaded and worked on in December, one of the 7 circles out of the one thing is key relationships. So what if you had more control over your time with the key relationships in your life? Money is the code that unlocks the safe. Watch this. Wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is what you don't see. Now, I love the story of Warren Buffett. What does Warren Buffett, at least as the story goes, what does he drive to work? Does anyone know? Has anyone read about that? What does he drive to work?
I think a Toyota or a Honda.
Well, it could be. I've heard it's like a blue truck. Now, that could be a Toyota truck, but he drives this blue truck. And I've also heard a story that sitting right next to him driving to the office is his lunch in a brown bag. Now, the reality is, would he be considered a success in the wealth world? And yet wealth is what you don't see. There is reference in the book that riches are what you see. And we're going to get to why that's a difference. Riches are maybe what you see. Wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is not spending the money you have. Wealth is not spending the money you have. The net worth tracker is going to bring a new reality around the money you have and how you save it. And I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to share some of my personal stories in the journey with the net worth tracker to give a little more context. Okay, watch this one. Raise your humility to become wealthy. Raise your humility to become wealthy. Less ego, more wealth. Less ego, more wealth. Now, I have to tell this story, and I'm going to beg for forgiveness before I do. Let's say that you're a car person, and you saved and you bought yourself a beautiful Ferrari. And you're cruising around town in your Ferrari. And you drive by a group of people, and they turn and stare. Who does the driver think they're staring at? Picture yourself in that car. You just bought a Ferrari, and you drive by, let's say, a group of people. Who does the driver think that crowd is looking at?
Him, not the car.
Oh,
Yes,
thanks.
Aaron. In the purchaser's mind, hey, look at me. Hey, everybody. Who's the crowd really looking at?
The car.
They're looking at the car. So if we make this connection, they tell that story in the book, the ego is the driver. I just bought a Ferrari. Look at me. Everyone else is just looking at the car. So the reality is less ego, more wealth. Where would your life be if it wasn't so much about, hey, look at me? Warren Buffett doesn't care. He's driving a blue truck with his sack lunch next to him. And I can tell you, he's got a lot of freedom and control. 2 more points. Saving money is the gap between ego and income. Saving money is the gap between ego and income. That darn 3-letter word shows up again. Watch this one. This is the last one, and then we're going to move over to the tracker. Cash is the oxygen of independence. Cash is the oxygen of independence. Now, one number that they talk about in a lot of books is your enough number. This is where the net worth tracker is going to come in. What's your enough number? I've also heard it referred to as your freedom number. Now, I'm going to share with you a group that I signed up with literally in December, and it's really been interesting how they're actually forcing my wife and I to create our dream future. Problem is, you tell my wife to think about a dream future, and the Newport Beach house on the sand is in her dream. I don't know where we're going to find the 24 million. She didn't care about that. She just did the exercise. The reality is, cash is the oxygen of independence, and it doesn't matter where you start. We start today. All right. So there's a ton of books, ton of great books on money. And I just bring that to you because that was a book that moved me. And part of what you're going to see today is maybe a different way that I'm living just because of this book a few minutes ago. All right. So all of you should have your net worth tracker open. And I am going to share my screen so that you can follow along. And hopefully you will be actually doing some of this work in the tracker. Now, remember when we did this in December, I actually had you filling out your current self, future self around the 7 circles in that document. So, you know, the more time we spend in this document, because when we started with your current self, future self, that was really building your why. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at how do we fund the why. And so you can see why I want to kind of stay in this format. Okay, so you should see 4 primary tabs. One is the net worth tracker overview, and you will see in this sample, my net worth. Now this isn't my net worth. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. And yet this is for the sample of the net worth. When you start logging your progress, you will see the chart, my change in net worth will create a line. You talk about a visual picture of what's going on in your financial world. When you see that thing going up, it kind of supports and fuels what we're doing here and talking about today from a visual perspective. All right, the first place I'd like you to go is the second of 4 tabs, which is the asset section. Now, coach to this a lot. Numbers freak us out. Your numbers around money freak you out. So let's just let go of being freaked out. Just put your money into the categories. So I gave a couple examples here. Cash. You might have cash on hand. In my example, $2,560. Okay? Maybe that's my cash on hand. My checking account, $6,700. It is what it is. Let's say we got a savings account, $18,560. So as far as my cash, I got about $28,000 in cash. Let's look at my assets. Let's say I own a house in California. If I'm doing this class in Ohio, I got to change that number. I don't even know what kind of, that might be a mobile home in California, $975,000. So I apologize if I went low on the house number, but what is the value of the house? I threw a couple cars in there, 15 grand, 6,000. If this was Warren Buffett's net worth tracker, that might be 0 if that truck was paid for from the 70s. Let's look at investments, stocks and bonds, 16 grand, 25,000. Okay, my investments. Let's look at my retirement. I put in here 401k, 20,000, an IRA, 10,000. And you can see over here on the left-hand side, it is tallying all of my assets. Now, if you've got a certain asset category that isn't covered in these 4 boxes, label it and put it in there. It doesn't matter. You're just adding it all up. Now, for those of you spreadsheet people, which I am not, maybe you add your own box. Keep it simple, folks. It's just a total number of what your assets are. Before I move to the debts, is there any questions around assets?
Unmute. So Donna had commented, I filled this out in December with Fritz's first class. It was a big turn on for me. I've been tracking my net worth every Monday morning. Thanks, Donna.
You know what? I love Donna. And I get the privilege of having an office right next to her and seeing her on most days. And it is truly a benefit. This will start to open your eyes to a reality that has been going on, in some cases on purpose, outside of our daily view. And that changes today. And I'm going to share with you again some personal growth around this. So Donna, thank you for that. All right, let's now move to the debt. So let's say I have credit card debt, $1,900. Let's say we've got a school loan, $21,000. Now, of all of these numbers, that is a number that is real for me. My daughter just graduated from college. She had a student loan. She now has a job. Thank you, God. And we are helping her understand that you are paying that loan back. And so I've got it on my tracker because ultimately we're responsible for it. We're also responsible for educating her on how you live responsibly around debt. So that is a real number. Let's say I got dental, 200, medical bills, 2,000. Okay, there's the mortgage on that mobile home that I've got here in California. Let's say that that's 750, and then here's the financing on my cars. Again, if the boxes don't fit your immediate needs, simply label what the debt is and log it in. And if you want to get super crazy around putting a fresh box for a certain kind of investment class that you have a lot of money in, be my guest. We just want to make sure that it all calculates right. So I was at $1 million something in assets. I got 780 in debt. And so therefore I've got my overview of 311,720. Okay. Any questions on the first 3 of 4 tabs? Alrighty then. Alrighty. Deb said this was going to be a super sharp group. Obviously, that was an understatement. You guys got this. Okay. Now, sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest impact. And if I were to ask you to go to the progress tab right now, you might think, if I ask the question, which of the 4 tabs is most important? Many of you may say, well, this one, of course. And I would argue with you that the real value is in the progress tab. And here is why. Monica Reynolds, the VP of MAPS Coaching, taught me many years ago. She goes, visit your money once a week. As a business owner, as a human being living, visit your money once a week. And I've had the tragedy of coaching people who had folks on their team that embezzled money. It just, whoop, gone. And they oftentimes were doing it just a little bit at a time. Well, what was that rainmaker leader not doing? They weren't visiting their business money, let alone their personal money. That changes today with this tool. So when you go through the progress report, you're going to simply put the date, you're going to put what the net worth is, and then it automatically tracks the difference. So let's go ahead. And I'm not going to change these dates just for sake of time. So let's say that from one week to the next, my net worth went from 311,720 to 365,640. That would be a 54,000 increase in my net worth. Let's say that I just closed a big 12-unit building in Calabasas. And I got a big commission check. Boom, I pop it in there. It shows up under my cash in my savings account. And let's say that I had a $54,000 gain. I would simply come in. I'm going to, just for the sake of discussion, put big closing. Maybe I, who knows? Maybe I sold some stock. Whatever. I just put some descriptive reason for the move. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where the magic happens. It's the relationship of X and Y. So I made this, and here's the reason this happens. It went down, and here's the reason it happened. This is called visiting your money once a week. Now, do you want to look at it daily? Don't overdo it. Just like, we wouldn't jump on the scale, 3 times a day and going, did I lose any weight? There's a point to where you won't see enough of the significance of the gap. Once a week, believe me, will be an eye-opener. The progress tab is where the magic happens. Okay, so I'm going to come off of share screen because the next one I'm going to show you is mine. Are there any questions before we go to the next phase?
Not showing anything on Facebook other than positive feedback. They said this is great. Donna says that she agrees. It makes you aware.
Yeah. By the way, awareness is the first step to transformation. So when you're not aware of anything, we called it a blind spot. when it comes to the issues of our money, awareness is the first step to transformation. And I am going to prove that to you as we look at mine here in a moment. Remember, the freedom, what does control equal? Humility, all of those things I covered from the psychology of money start to get supercharged when we look at what's happening weekly with our money. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to do a share screen again. Now, I'm not going to go through the overview and the assets in the debt. What I am going to show you, though, is my progress tab. So hold on here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is my progress tab. And to show you when this journey began, it began on May 25th, 2020, with the individual at that time that was coaching me. Now, we're peers, so it was kind of funny. He'd coach me, and then he gave me his 411, and he said, would you hold me accountable to this? So it was kind of like a peer coaching scenario. Now, I blocked out the net worth there. You know, I don't need to get into the ego of what that number is, but there's a number behind that blacked out section. And it's obviously meaningful to me because it's my number. Your number is your number. And it doesn't matter what it is. What is important is the journey begins today. So on May 25th, 2020, I sat down with my wife on a Sunday evening, and I'll tell you the significance of that here in a minute. And we loaded all of the numbers for my net worth tracker. And I simply said in the notes, beginning balance, preparing for the head coach cadre meeting, because this was an assignment given in a group that I participate in. So I go to my wife, hey, we got to go visit our money. And Sundays tend to work for us. So it's Sunday, late afternoon, evening. My wife likes to do it before dinner. I like to do it after dinner. I don't know, it's just the way we're wired. And I will normally say to her around noon, when are we doing net worth today? She knows exactly what that means. Now, I may have a rather boring life, and don't judge me around what I'm going to say, but we call this our financial date night. It's 15 minutes. It's us getting up to speed on things, and it's she and I, so I just call it a date night. Again, don't judge me on it. I need to get a more exciting life. I get it. And yet what really excites me around this, our financial date night, is where these numbers are going. So I go to the next week, the 31st. Where'd that number go? Am I okay? Yes?
It's
maybe?
it's increasing. You're doing good.
It went up. And I'm like, oh my God, I love financial date night. Then I said, why did that happen? My wife says, well, the stock market went up and you got paid. Oh, okay, that's why that happened. Okay, good. See you next Sunday. I go to next Sunday. Am I okay?
You're
No.
doing great.
Hey, I'm okay. I said, Kate, why did that happen? She says, cash went down after paying bills and the stock market increase impacted the rest. Irish SEP and stocks. That's where it went up. So this continues. Now, look what happened a couple weeks later. Oh, Fritz didn't like financial date night. Now, it doesn't matter because remember, patience was covered in the book. Patience. It's not about this herky-jerky, oh my God. It's about the patience of the awareness around our money. So I said, Kate, why did the number go down? She said, market value adjustments around our retirement accounts. Of course, I'm thinking, am I going to get to retire? Where is this going? Well, it bounced back a couple weeks later. So each week, with the exception, I think we've missed 3 Sundays only because we were traveling, is I just scroll down, you can see the black versus the red numbers. And we have a little explanation about each one. Some weeks are bigger than others. Some we barely break even, and some we go into the red. But the awareness is what's important. Now, let me show you why and how this is showing up in my life. And you know, one of the things that helps hold me accountable is I share my life and my reality with as many people as possible. It kind of helps me reinforce the journey that I'm on. So financial date night, usually Sunday evenings, she sits at the computer. I sit at my laptop filling these numbers in. And what's interesting about it is she'll say, where are we at? When I get to the calculation, right, is the overall number. Where are we at? Because now she likes to see it go up too. So there's a little bit of a intrigue before I hit the button and we get to really see, are we up or are we down? And so that's all been pretty cool. So all of a sudden, as we're getting towards the holidays, you know, I ask her, what do you want for the holidays? She asked me, what do you want for the holidays? And a lot of the coaches at KW were getting Peloton bikes. Now, that's not a cheap bike, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the things I do is I get really excited about things that other people have. Maybe it's my ego, because we just learned that ego versus humility has a direct correlation to wealth. And so, like, I mean, literally a dozen coaches ended up getting bikes, and then they're all in like a chat group together. Hey, I just got a new record. And then I could feel myself getting pulled in and pulled in and pulled in. My wife says, why don't you just get it? I don't have a Peloton. I still work out. I run roughly 2.5 miles a day, ran this morning in the pouring rain. It was exciting. And what do you think the reason is that I didn't pull the trigger on that Peloton bike? What do you think was going through my head now that it's not a blind spot anymore? There's awareness around money. What do you think was the reason I didn't just, boom, go do it?
Your net worth would have gone down.
Yes. Every decision now that we make is leaned up against what's going to happen on Sunday night. Now, listen, I do a lot of traveling pre-COVID back and forth to Austin. Many of you know the story, you know, leave on a Sunday night, come home on a Thursday or Friday and do it all over again. So I'm thinking, if I get a Peloton bike here in California and I'm, you know, living 4 or 5 days a week in Austin, one, I'm not going to get to ride it. I do like being out and kind of look at the scenery, and you know, I know the instructors and you can pick different things and music and the whole thing. But at the end of the day, I was thinking about that net worth. So I held back and I waited, and I'm really glad that I did. I may get one day, but the net worth tracker had me think about it in a different way. Now, because I like the transparency of what's happening to me, we redid this house a few years ago. And if you've ever rebuilt a house from the ground up, you generally spend too much. And now it's time 3 years later to get it furnished. My wife says, you know, I'd like to do these 3 or 4 rooms. I go do it. I mean, go get a decorator and let's check it out. The decorator came by. They gave us the estimate. And once I recovered from passing out, I said, you've got to be kidding me. It's that much? I mean, it was a massive number. I said, there's no way we're doing that. Now, do you think we're probably going to do it? This is more of a husband-wife thing. We're probably going to do it. However, I'm going to go kicking and screaming. But the reality is what we talked about that evening when I go, it's impossible. I'll make a couch. I'll go buy the tools and make this couch. How much are couches? I mean, isn't that what IKEA is for? She goes, we're not getting an IKEA couch. But at the end of the day, that decision was butting up against, and even she was saying it too, what would be the impact on our net worth? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the real life journey of what awareness does to our money. The humility of, do we need that couch or do we need a couch that would suit our needs, is the difference between humble and ego. Do we need a Ferrari, and are they looking at me? Or could I get by with a car that gets me from A to Z, and my humbleness is being highlighted versus the ego? And I'm telling you, if you can bring this into your world, if you can get a significant other or a spouse involved, it always helps. And now let's go to the best accountability partner we all have. Who in our house is our best accountability partner? Who is it?
Ourselves?
Okay. It would be great if that were the case. And yet when we share a goal or a dream and vision, there's one particular group of humans in your house that tend to never let you forget about it. Who is that?
Your significant other?
Who is that? Did I hear
Your
significant other?
other?
Okay, who's even better than
Yeah.
that?
Your
I
kids.
think
Your kids. You set a goal, you tell them, look out. Especially if that goal may include them experiencing a trip or vacation or fun tied to your goal. Are you kidding me? They'll beat you at the front door every night you get home from work. So share this journey with them. So
Right.
one of the things that I coach my coaches to do is, are you sharing a net worth tracker version with your kids? So a great story. I've got an unbelievable coach that studies with me. Her name is Nicole, single mom, and she's got a great 10-year-old, and they just have the best relationship. And I said, Nicole, does your son know about the net worth tracker? Oh boy, did I open up Pandora's box. She gave him a couple $100 to put in the bank and call his account. He has his version of the net worth tracker. And now we've created a monster. So now when it comes to spending his money, he negotiates to spend mom's money because he says, I don't want my net worth tracker to go down. Now that's a funny real life story. And yet, who's the first teacher of money to our kids?
We are.
We are. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, we are the most important teacher on all values in our household. Now, that's no judgment. It's just, that's what it is. We are constantly being watched. So when it comes to habits around money, this is what we share with our kids. It may be the best gift we can give them.
So my son is 20 and he's living on his own, supporting himself with his own money. And I'm his landlord, so I'm buying him a new refrigerator. And he says to me, Mom, you haven't had a closing recently. How are you paying for this refrigerator?
Yeah.
And the same thing, he tries to let me buy as much as possible so he doesn't deplete his net worth.
Yep. Now, listen, and I'm going to just, again, I've shared a lot about my own personal story because I want it to resonate with some of your stories. Back to the student loan. Statistically speaking, student loans are a huge drain and weight on our economy. In fact, there's a lot of discussion about how we should handle student loans. It's even probably more so with the new administration coming in. I don't care whatever is forgiven. I don't care what happens. I literally, and this was just a few weeks ago, she graduated in May. I think she got this job in June. I said, and her name is Ashley. I said, Ashley, let me be clear on one thing. You were paying back every dime of that loan. Well, yeah, but I heard that there might be forgiveness. There is no forgiveness. You went to the school, You got the education. We spent the money. You got the loan. You're paying it back. Now, that was an opportunity where for me, I was able to communicate a lesson that when you borrow money, you pay it back. And that's just for me. You guys don't have to just take that, oh my God, is he preaching to us? No, but it was an opportunity at the dinner table to provide a lesson. And in the book, The Psychology of Money, they go, many financial lessons are transacted at the dinner table, just like so many other lessons are communicated when we're sitting down and having a meal together. So don't underestimate this tool for what it will do for you and who you can share it with. Okay, comments, thoughts, or questions on the tracker itself? I got a couple more things and then we're done. Everyone's busy putting in their numbers. What is it? What is it? And really, do not look at the number and have any judgment around it at all. It is what it is. And today is the beginning. Today is the beginning. Okay, couple of things here. This is a book that everyone should be familiar with, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. This is an unbelievable way for you to focus on building net worth. And you know what's so cool about this? It's in the business we all live in and work in. Now, you may argue, are you kidding me? Look at, there's multiple offers, overbidding. This isn't a good time to buy. First of all, Gary says there's always good opportunities in the market if you know what you're looking for. And there's always a market that you could be saving for, whether it's here now. There may be a better market coming that you could be the solution to a lot of people's challenges. I mean, think about that. Now, if you don't have any net worth, how do you take advantage of those opportunities? So if you're looking for a book, The Psychology of Money, I'm holding up my note sheet, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Gary breaks this down as simply as it can be broken down. And I know a lot of our coaches engage in book clubs and a lot of things tied to investing. And I'm telling you, there are so many tools and opportunities to become an investor, you know, using other people's money to invest. And real estate, quite frankly, is one of the more stable investments. If you look at my progress tracker, many of my uptick investments are tied to the stock market. That is a very volatile way to live. And I am currently looking at diversifying into more property. So just a personal journey, again, that I'm going through. In addition to that, I'd like to recommend the book, Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. It's a powerful book. It speaks of the opportunities that our tax law gives you to cut down on your taxes. He sets it up in a format in which we look at oftentimes taxes as a negative thing. He said the government's tax policy is geared to guide money to initiatives that they feel are important. I know until I read that, I looked at that and just said, how much of my money can I not have the government take from me? And I think they only say about 5% of all the tax codes are written about paying taxes. The rest of it is about the opportunities around tax law. So we could talk about this another time, but I actually have partnered with this company. That's where this building, this dream vision of the future is coming from. There's a team of people that assess where I have tax opportunity, and I am in that journey now. We've had 2 meetings with our team, and they are assessing where I can create a situation where I can better plan around my taxes versus just around April 15th, have my taxes prepared. So it's a journey that I'm on. I love sharing it because I want more people on this journey too. Who you all share it with begins today. Comments, thoughts, or questions before we're done? What did you learn? What did you hear? we answered everything.
No, everybody's so quiet. Jeffrey has been commenting on, Jeffrey Tolbert, he's on Facebook watching and has enjoyed it, was giving some feedback. I think that, for me, listening in, it's that, what you focus on expands. And watching, making certain that we're watching what we're doing, because when we ignore it, it just disappears. And I like the conversation.
And Deb, and I can't underscore how important it is. And we actually kind of laugh about it. I mean, we have a household that we've got a lot of humorous human beings living in. And so anytime we look at spending money, the knee-jerk response is, how's it going to impact our net worth tracker? Oh my God, Sunday night. And it's just awareness that we have around it. And yet we've got really nice things. We live an unbelievable life. I feel so privileged and blessed. And yet there's that excess piece, and it does start to get into the piece around ego. And I'm finding that my humility is even being expanded more. And as it relates to money, that's where the wealth really is impacted positively. Okay. Any other final thoughts, whether it's Facebook, whether it's within the Forward Living group, anything else coming to mind?
Well, Fritz, for me personally, I took away that I was going to put this in my calendar on Fridays to go revisit that tracker. So
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I do have a question. Do you ever consider in like a worksheet like this to include some sort of like asset protection things? It's a little bit outside of this, but I just wondered if you have any thoughts on that.
It's a really good question. So I'm going to go back to this group. I'm not the only one that has hired this individual. And by the way, there are a number of companies that do this. What really sold me on them, and by the way, I went through a long vetting process. By the way, they accept you. They want to make sure that they can truly move the needle and reduce your taxes. It's a pretty healthy investment, to be honest with you. But what really sold me on them is the other coach that went through it. One of the first things they tackled in the assets that this gentleman owned is the protection piece. And just a little side note, there are certain states within the US that favor the protectionism of companies. So within a nanosecond, they opened a corporation in one of those states where the individual owner is a confidential thing. I mean, it's not public knowledge. Only the company is to protect against that. So you bring up a really good question. In the book, they talk about protecting assets, and they're actually coaching people to open up corporations in states that are more favorable there. It's a really good question, especially if you're building net worth. You better be ready to answer those questions, because one day you got it, one day you don't.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, great question. Okay, anyone else?
I just wanted to say that a few years ago, I actually read a book called Stop Pretending to Be Rich and Start Living Like a Millionaire. And it actually, exactly the same concept. The format in the spreadsheet here is just gives you a visual. So I'm definitely going to implement that myself.
Yeah, just to show you how far this can go, and today's day one, you all are going to write your own story around this. But I get the privilege of working with someone who's really committed to this. And so when we took on a new role recently, and again, I was his accountability partner, he shared with me how many days he had left in a particular role and a net worth number before he hit his freedom number. Now, what I just said to you is what he told me, but I'm going to actually put some context to it. Could you imagine saying to a colleague, I'm 754 days away from my freedom number based on a net worth growth monthly of blank. And then I'm turning over the keys. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I got plans, I got dreams, I got visions. And his freedom number was in the net worth tracker. He just went to the extreme of down to the days and the number. So then our dialogue passing in the hall is, how are you doing on your number? He goes, I'm on pace. One day, I'm a little behind. I got to buy something. And it was fun to have this back and forth. But Aaron, this can grow into a lot of things. It's all in your control. And one of the things that this group says, most people think their dreams are 10 to 12 years away. Their commitment is, if we could cut that down to 4 to 7 years, how does that change what that dream life looks like? Now, I've only had 2 meetings with these folks, but I can tell you what, that resonated with me. And protect my assets and give me a team of people that are strategizing around this while I go do my job. Now, all of a sudden, the net worth tracker has a whole new meaning when we're counting days until you live that freedom life. And again, it begins today. Okay, one more question and then we'll be done. Well, then I guess we covered it. We're good. So don't wait too long. You hear a lot of times where you learn a new thing and you go, oh, that's so cool. I'm going to do it as soon as I can. And then as soon as I can means it never gets done. Set an appointment, make a commitment to do it like today. Just go to your accounts, plug the numbers in, because once that shows up in that overview, you now have a benchmark. And then see each week if you create a black number or a red number, depending on where we are a week from today, or whenever you choose to do your check-in. And if you want to call it a financial date night, don't let anyone say that you're boring. Okay? That's a joke. All right, folks, have a great Friday. I love spending time with you talking about this type of thing. We'll get the February schedule up and out. And just get ready. I'm going to kind of stay within this arena of working smart and then allowing scenarios where our money is working smart. And then as I get more of this in my head, I'm bringing it to you. Okay? All right, Deb, are we good?
We are good. Thank you so much, Fritz. We always
My pleasure.
always appreciate your time and information. It just, I think, motivates all of us to try something different, implement some new things.
Well, and what would motivate me is to know that you all are one step closer to your freedom number from what we talked about today. That's what gets me going. So your feedback around what you're growing your net worth and Donna sharing is a really important piece for me. So begin the journey.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody.
I'll see you
Have a
next
great
month.
Friday. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fritz.
Goodbye. Take care.
Yeah.